You asked, we answered number one. So it says, feel free to use this. This is a tab. I'm not going to throw it up because confidentiality, there's some stuff that I do have to go ahead and hide, but I'll read it out to you. So I'm a relatively upbeat and positive individual. Even though I have medical issues, I still work a job and try to contribute to multiple communities. I have a good and healthy relationships with my friends and family in real life, as well as online. The problem is that I find it hard to take care of my own needs. While knowing one's needs are half the battle, I'm aware of them. I find it difficult to do 5-minute stuff like dishes, take out garbage, or cooking myself good food. I know I should do these things and the effort involved is minimal. I just can't seem to do the simple tasks like these, despite doing more complex ones like going to a grocery store. For people who know and are aware of their own issues, how would we approach resolving those problems we already know about but haven't been able to fix?
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a good question. And I'm interested how you would answer this. My first thought is kind of this is about like what is your relationship with yourself? That's this kind of question, right?
Right.
Because we're talking about reflecting on an aspect we see in ourselves. Right
Right.
now, we're noticing that we're aware of the problem, right? This isn't a discovery issue. We're aware that we're having this problem, but we're not seeming to be able to kind of find the solution to it. So this is like, what is your relationship like with yourself? What's the dialogue that's happening when you're able to set goals, set time, set activity for yourself on like larger tasks. But when it comes to the minutia, right? Like what's the conversation that's happening? What's the inner dialogue, and why and how is it different? How is the conversation with yourself different when you compare it from these tasks that you are getting done versus these ones that aren't? That's kind of like where my mind goes to when I try to identify like, okay, what domain are we in? Are we in a cognitive behavioral domain? Are we in a uh, right like identity domain? And I would say
Right.
it's right in the middle between those. This is cognitive behavioral because it is about thoughts and behaviors having a mismatch, right? My thought is I know I need to do this thing. My behavior is I'm not able to do it, right? There's the disconnect, and it's an identity thing because it's about we're reflecting on some aspect of ourselves that we're not agreeable to. We're not happy
Right.
with what we're seeing from ourselves. So my first thought is, yeah, where do we place the issue? I'd say it's right in between those two subjects. So where do you branch out from there in terms of actual
So
advice?
one of the things that I do see is that and just like reading it, it's like one of the like I'm gonna paraphrase it, but he can't seem to do the simple task, but yet he's able to do the more complex ones. So my thing is like if you think of your brain like a CPU, right? And say you have all of these files open and you have to get a bunch of Word documents open. Yeah, like you know what? It's gonna be annoying because you have to open up all these different little Word documents, but yet you're able to run like Crisis or Doom full speed without any issue. Of course,
Sure.
it's gonna take up a majority of your, the way that you're thinking, a majority of like your energy and whatnot. Something that we often don't take into consideration as like individuals is like if you're going through stressful days, if you're depressed, if you're having any type of anxiety or you're having all these expectations on you, you're literally like slotting up different amounts of energy that is going into like these behaviors. For example, we have a lot of like unconscious behavior that we already do, like getting up, going to the restroom, taking a shower, brushing our teeth. All of these are running in the background. They're sort of like the task manager with all these background tasks that are running. And then it's like, okay, well then what are the important aspects that like you want to get? If you say that you can go to the grocery store and not do the simple task, how about we like reverse it, How about instead of like taking the big trip, getting in your car, taking a long distance, remembering what you have to get, take it like one step at a time and it's like simplifying. If you can already do really complex tasks, like break it down, like what can I do this moment? I can cut vegetables. Okay. What's the next step from cutting vegetables? Oh, we can fry them. We can make some delicious Big Berthas. If you guys don't know, it's me and Brady used to cook together. He was my sous chef for a good little bit. Fantastic
Right.
chef.
I would eat.
But throwing it out there, it's sort of like, breaking down the big complex ones into little steps and get what you can done without like having something so huge take up a majority of your CPU. If you want to think about
Yeah,
it that way.
right. Because it was what I would also say is, so if we're not making a distinction between like, it's maybe not about the physicality of the thing, right?
Right.
If we're just comparing like a large group of things, right? Because what did they say they're able to do that's in the larger task category?
So, he finds it difficult to do 5 minute simple stuff like dishes, taking out the garbage,
Right.
cooking, uh,
What are the
all of
things that
that.
they can do?
But they're able to like go to the grocery store and get all their shit. Essentially, is what I'm reading here.
So my thought here is like, right, like if we're comparing, so those are two categories of things, right?
Right.
We have a large task like going to the grocery store. That's a large task because you're getting dressed, you're going outside, you're walking or driving somewhere. There's a lot of things involved with that. But, going to take out the trash or do the laundry, this is like a small activity. Yeah. But there's no difference between the like physical exertion,
Right.
right? If you were to compare like, okay, I need to climb a set of 5 stairs versus a set of 30 stairs. Same activity, different level of physical activity. But this isn't like that, right? These are two categories that don't have any real difference in terms of how much physical energy you need to do them. So this isn't really about not having the physical energy to do those small tasks. It's just about how you're compartmentalizing them,
Right.
right? If you find it easier to group tasks together and say, I can go to the grocery store because you've identified that's something you're able to do. You're not breaking that down to the level of I have to get dressed, I have to get my bag, I have to, write a grocery list, I have to go find the food, I have to get it home, I have to unpack it, I have to put it away. Like if you're breaking it down to that level, you might find it tedious, you might find it a little too compartmentalized. So take the same approach the opposite way and say, if I can group the things I don't find easy to do
Right.
in a way that I, can group things that I do find easy to do, don't make the goal I have to take out my trash. Make the goal I have to do my basic chores, right?
Mhm.
Because you can say I can go to the grocery store.
Right.
You're not thinking about all the minute things you need to do. If you're able to work on things at a macro level,
Right.
then I would say try to apply that to all of the things that you need to do that you're not able to do on the micro level. So find a way to group those things together and again, I would say try and pay attention to what's the conversation happening in your head
Yep. And
when
listen to
when
your
you
body.
when you
Yeah.
because all you can do when you're trying to change a cognitive or a behavioral thing is you need evidence, right? It's a little science experiment. You look at like what is a case where I'm successful at this?
Right.
Here's a group of tasks I have no trouble doing. I can go to the grocery store and get my stuff.
Right.
Where is the case where I have trouble doing this? And you need to be able to compare them. You need something concrete that says like, okay, when I'm doing the task I succeed at, what is the aspect that helps me to succeed in it?
Right.
And why is that missing from the other one? You do need to be like, a bit of an inner observer and a documenter of your own thought process to kind of, yeah, like see what component is missing and
Right.
compare it to the place where it's not missing.
So one thing I'll add on to this, like, and just like sort of wrapping up, is first off, we appreciate you being open and vulnerable and uh, sharing this with us. Because anyone that sends an email and actually like wants to go ahead and like let us know something that's happening or a situation or whatever, that's a big vulnerability aspect. And granted, we're keeping all the information safe. We still want to go ahead and appreciate you for opening up and starting this series with us. You're the first one, man. Congratulations. But
Yeah, we're just talking about things in like general, vague terms.
yeah. Hello all to all the new people that like joined or chatted. Like we appreciate you guys. But what I am gonna add on, and this is sort of like my last little thing. This might sound really fucking sus. Immediately, I will say it. But sometimes we need a little bit of that energy. We need a little bit of that reward. And sometimes, when we do good stuff, we like to get rewarded. We're very much like, behavioral. I wonder if you know where I'm going with this, Brady. It might make you laugh if you guess where I'm going with this. So, what I would suggest, and this might just be something fun just to try out by yourself, especially if you're having issues with motivation or with the actual like, okay, I can get this done. Literally find a treat, something you like, M&Ms, Skittles, whatever, and every time you do something like that, grab it. Might sound silly, you might do exercise, please drink water, do it responsibly. But if you give yourself like literally like Pavlovian training in a way, it's a pretty good way for you to stay motivated to do what you need to get done, and then you can take away the treats later on and get them done by yourself.
So I agree with you, right?
Yeah.
Reward. We all have a reward center in our brain that is very powerful. But I would say that this comes like at a
Oh,
different stage in the um it comes at a different stage in the process, right? You have to do that observation and that investigation part
right.
first, because if you're because you it might not be the fact that you're not the success of the bigger tasks might not be related to the fact that you feel more rewarded by it, right? You need to know, is that the thing that is making me succeed in that area and is missing from this area? And if you identify that and you say, yeah, okay, like the reason I'm able to do those bigger tasks is because I feel more rewarded by them, that's when you say, all right, I need to introduce a reward structure to this
Yeah.
problem. I don't
And then,
necessarily know if it would help just right out of the gate,
but it,
to like,
right. My big thing with that is it's a pretty good setup though. So later on, because say that you go through something like this, right, and you're starting to become aware, and you're like starting to introduce certain things like this. Say like even if it's not necessarily candy, say that it's water or something silly. You're literally training your body not just for say this specific task, but later on, like, hey, you know what? I want to get involved in exercising. Hey, you know what? I want to go ahead and do something. You're like training your body to be ready for the implementation of something that you want to do, any goal orientation, and not necessarily a reward, but like something that you can like stimulate you. It's like stimulating your brain to go ahead and do something. Um, but if it continues, if it persists, you'll always hear this at the end of all of our things. Please reach out to a therapist, not us necessarily, but like a licensed therapist in your area, because it can be like it could also be like comorbidity, like like different factors being involved, different diagnosis or anything like that. So please be
that's
aware
one
of that.
like that's one extra disclaimer I'd like to add on to this is like, so, you know, usually like sometimes you'll get this question from people where it's like, oh, do psychologists analyze everyone and this sort of thing? And it's like, well, here's the thing about that. Psychological analysis in this context is very restricted to an environment where you can ask questions, where you can
Right.
ask a lot of follow-up questions. So it's actually not possible for me or you to analyze the average person without a pretty rigorous line of specific questioning. So that's why we don't sit around and analyze everyone, because we would need to ask like intake questionnaires, because that's how
Wait.
it'd be like trying to do a math problem without the formula, right? Like
Right.
the formula is we find out as much basic info as we can, we ask follow-up questions, we build a profile, we go down that line of questioning. So that's psychological analysis. It is a environment of asking questions. And so when we're working on a situation like this where we just have, a basic statement and we're working off of that, we're not able to ask follow-up questions. So
Yep.
this is not really a
Replacement for
rigorous
therapy.
psychological analysis. This is just two people with a psychological background, uh, you know, discussing like basic solutions to a presenting problem. But that's one thing I would highlight is, yeah, like the typical psychological analysis. It takes place in a specific environment under specific conditions and requires a specific means of being able to ask follow-up questions, which we don't have access to because we're just reading sort of a prompt. So this isn't
Yeah.
therapy. It's not analysis. It's more like
And
brainstorming, but with a background in
yeah.
I've had
It, the,
experience working with people in, cognitive behavioral situations. And so I'm just kind of drawing on that.
That's why the best way that I can phrase this, it's friendly advice. Like it's advice that you would get from a friend, just knowing our area of expertise. But that way everyone stays clear and out there, and we'll always like paraphrase that and make sure that like it's known. But with that being said, we thank you so much, especially for you being the first one. Thanks for opening up, and I hope that this helps out. This is the way it works. For those of you that are interested, the email will be down below.